Good morning and welcome to Face the State, a news and public affairs presentation of Montana's news station.
Welcome across the state of Montana on the Montana Television Network. Thank you for joining us today. We're in Conrad, Montana, Pend Oreille County, and we're visiting with Wylie Gustufson from Conrad, and you probably have heard of Wylie in the Wild West. Well, this is the key guy right here. Nice to have you with us today, Wylie.
Happy that you came to Conrad.
Well, it's really fun to get out of town and talk to some of the entertainers, and you're one of the people that have really made a name for themselves. But I'd like to start and go back to your childhood. Where we stand is where you went to live when you went to school, right?
Yeah, born and raised in Conrad, raised on this ranch here, and played in this corral, rode horses in this pasture, and yeah, Conrad's a great place to grow up, and I had a wonderful childhood here.
How big a family?
5 siblings, and I'm the youngest, and mom and dad, so we had a full household.
And this must have been a very musical home, because there are several of you that are involved in music.
Yeah. Dad played the guitar and sang to us, and Mom sang with us and took me to church and sang every Sunday. So music was always a big part of my life. And on Sunday evenings we'd watch Lawrence Welk and then turn the TV off, and Dad would get out his guitar and sing to us. And we had one sister, so we'd all take turns dancing with our sister in the living room, and a lot of good memories growing up.
And do you think that played a part in where you ended up today?
Absolutely. I think the biggest musical influence, or one of them in my life, is my dad. And he taught me a lot of the songs that I sing in the shows today. And, a lot of the oral tradition of handing down the songs, the old cowboy songs. I still do those in our performances. And that's a big part of our show, is doing the old music. So it's important that Dad taught me a lot of those songs.
Did he perform professionally or not?
Not professionally, no. He would sing to us at home, and I think he would sing for his friends, but he liked to play the guitar and still likes to play and sing to us. So,
who were some of the other people that maybe influenced your sound as you sound today? Maybe some people you admired that were big in the industry?
Well, I think Marty Robbins has always been a big influence. I really like the way Marty blended country and Western. A lot of his lyrics are very Western, cowboy oriented, and that's the kind of music that I like, and I try to write. The cowboy lifestyle and the cowboy part of the music is really important to me.
You stand around here in Conrad and you look at the front and some of the different things that you see, the scenery, the beautiful scenery here. How does that influence your writing when you sit down and write?
It's a big, important part of my writing, to be able to get out and be inspired. And with the cowboy music, the countryside and the images, and that's all a very important part of the music, what you see, what you feel. And I think you got to be in the great outdoors to appreciate that. And so in Washington State, where I live now, my wife and I have a ranch, and when I want to write a song, I'll just get out, get on my horse and go ride, or sit out on the porch and just try to soak it up.
We see a couple of horses behind you here.
Yeah.
And I read in some of the notes, like on your webpage, that you're the real deal. You're a real cowboy, and that's true.
I love horses. Consider myself a horseman, I guess more than a cowboy, although we do have cattle, and my family ranch is here in the Conrad area. So that's always, the cowboy has always been a big part of growing up. And I feel blessed because I get to go play music part of the time, and I get to come home to a wonderful wife, some great horses. My wife and I both compete in cutting competitions with our horses, and I team rope a lot. So as far as blending that into the music, it's natural for me, and I think my music is better because of the life that I get to live.
You've been very fortunate. You started out singing at home, and at some point, when did you make that jump where you ended up at the Grand Old Opry? Was that a lot of years of hard work?
Yeah, it is. A lot of years of hard work. When I was out of high school, I went to 2 years of college at University of Montana in Missoula, and was in a band with my brother Eric. And after 2 years of college, I had to make the decision of, do I want to be a full-time musician, or do I want to stick in college? And I went on the road, and was on the road full-time for 6 years with a band called The Talk. And we played all over Montana, all over the Northwest, and that was when I made started making the choice of, well, do I want to be a professional musician, or do I want this to be a hobby? And I made the choice of being a professional musician. And it's been a long, hard road. The band that I have now, Wylie and the Wild West, we've been together for 12 years. But before that, before we got our record deal, before we started doing videos and performing, there's a lot of hard work. A lot of shows that we played where maybe 3 or 4 people were in the audience. And we had to pay our dues.
How did you get on the Grand Old Opry? How did that happen?
We were playing out in Washington, D.C. for a show called The Voice of America, which is a government-sponsored radio show. And the gal who produced that knew the person who booked the Grand Ole Opry, and so she sent my tape to them, and they invited us on the Grand Ole Opry back in 1993. And I think we've been on over 40 times, over 40 appearances since 1993, and it's still one of the greatest gigs for me, is to be able to go to Nashville and stand on the stage where so many of my heroes have stood and sang.
What did it feel like that first time? Pretty scary?
Very scary. I'm surprised I could even sing at all. My legs were shaking, and I was pretty uptight because I've always had dreamed of being on the Grand Ole Opry. Being in country music, that's one of the goals I think every young kid thinks about, is being on the Grand Ole Opry stage. At least I did. And when you make it, it's overwhelming. I finally did settle down enough to be able to sing a couple songs, and it all worked out. They even invited me back, so I knew that something must have went right. But it was a wonderful feeling, and still is every time I go there. One of the funnest things about going to the Opry is being backstage and talking to the artists. I mean, little Jimmy Dickens, and all these guys are backstage, and they want to tell you stories and talk to you, and they always make me feel right at home there. So it's a pretty special place.
New face Mary barely had the strength to tell. Skies are not so black. Mary took me back. Mary has broken the spell. Ooh, devil woman, let me. Devil woman, let me be. Leave me alone. I wanna go home. Mike Freed on the steel guitar. Leon on the guitar. The seashore, running as fast as I can. Even the seagulls are happy that I'm coming home again. Never again will I never also know that you fall. Down the beach I see what belongs to me, but what I want most of all, devil woman, devil woman, let me. Devil woman, let me be. Leave me alone. I want to go home. Oh, devil woman, let me. Devil woman, let me be. Leave me alone. I want to go home. Why, thank you very much. Good to see we have a few Marty Robbins fans out there tonight. All right. Feeling good? Like to dedicate this next song to all my friends back home in Montana and Washington State out there. How you feeling tonight, Ray?
I feel great, Wylie. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah. There's really only one way to express how I feel right now, Ray.
Yeah, well, would you share that with us? Does that mean you're feeling good or you're feeling bad?
That means I'm feeling real good. I'm going to do one of my favorite songs right now. and are prowling, coyotes are howling, out where doggies born. Spears are a-jingling, the cowboys are singing his lonesome cattle call. His cattle each farm. He's singing his cattle call. Well, 4 hours he will ride the range far and wide, while the night winds blow up a squall. His heart is a feather in all kinds of weather. He sings his cattle call. And he speaks with an old western drawl. He's singing his cattle call. Let's take it home, boys.
Start clapping, that's pretty neat. But when they stand up, what'd that feel like?
There's no feeling like it. You know, it's there's nothing like being rewarded like that at the end of a performance with people appreciating your music. I mean, that's why I do music, is hopefully somebody will like it and it'll reach them in a certain way where they make them smile or make them clap. And you know, our music is this style of music. You don't hear it on the radio a lot. We're doing type of music where, you know, when we play for audiences, maybe it's something they haven't heard in a while. So it's always interesting to see the reaction they get from the old music and the old style of music. And you know, that was a great night.
Does that bother you that your music, as good as it is, doesn't get played on a lot of radio stations?
No, it doesn't. We're kind of a secret, you know, and it's good to be a secret sometimes. I mean, I'm making a living doing what I'm doing, and that's all that I ask is make a decent living. And you know, our audience is growing all the time. That's important too. And so as long as that happens, and as long as I enjoy it, and that's all that matters. You know, I'm not in this business to be the next Garth Brooks. You know, I don't want to sell 1 million albums just for the sake of selling 1 million albums. I want the music to be quality music that reaches people in a certain way, in a special way, and I don't want to be just like the next guy, you know. I don't want to be the next Garth Brooks or whoever. I want to be myself, and the music that we do, I want it to sound like Montana or sound like Eastern Washington where I live. You know, I want it to be a reflection of where I'm from and what I do.
What do people say when they hear from you? You're from Montana, you're from Washington, and not from Nashville or something. Does that surprise them? Are they curious about it?
Usually, no, they kind of expect it. And, you know, playing Western music, we're from out West. A lot of people wonder why I don't live in Nashville and, you know, why I don't spend more time there. And it's just because, you know, I don't need to. I think it's better for me to spend more time away from Nashville and not get caught up in the hit-making machine that Nashville kind of represents. Our music is very specialized, and to be able to write songs that mean something to me, I need to be out here being inspired by the wide open spaces and being inspired by what it feels like on the back of a good horse.
There's probably a lot of people in Nashville that would like to have your job. There's a lot of competition out there, isn't there?
There is a lot of competition. I mean, the music industry is famous for having you know, when we went to Nashville, there's a band on every corner. So, you know, early on I told myself, well, I'm just going to do what I love to do, and I'm going to be different. I'm not going to try to please everybody. I'm just going to try to write the music that I like to sing, and if people like it, great, then I have an audience. So again, that's why I'm not worried about selling 1 million albums. It's just doing what I want to do, and we're finding that the audience that we have is very loyal and very appreciative. They keep coming back, and it's not the type of audience that some of the Nashville artists have. You know, you have one hit record and then you don't hear from them again. Our audience, they'll keep coming back for more. You know, it's not so much about hit records. It's you know, they want to see us perform. We have a website. I always make sure I answer my emails if I have time, and kind of, you know, every fan is important to me. And when we go out and play, if we're at a venue, I make a point of being not backstage, but out front, you know, talking with people and getting to meet people. That's one of the great things about my job, is we get to meet different people, and we get to make people smile, and I want to talk to those people and see what they're all about.
Do you get a chance to look out into the audience and see some younger people and maybe feel like you're carrying on some of this older music into a new generation?
Yeah, and that's really important to me, that the music that we do, I just don't want to be a retro band that's doing old songs, you know, in an old style. I don't want to be a reenactor. I want to be somebody who's taking Western music and cowboy music and making it contemporary, taking it in a new direction, and making a young audience listen up. And we do have a young audience with what we do. There's a large portion of our audience is older, but there is a lot of young people, and it surprises me. We play the Seattle area a lot, and most of the people that come out to see us are under 30 years old. And there's a club that we play out there, and every time it's packed with kids wanting to hear something different, wanting to hear something that they don't hear on the radio, wanting to hear something real. You know, when I'm singing about roping or whatever, you know, they can kind of relate to it somehow. Even though they're urban kids in an urban environment, they relate to Western music, and I've never been able to completely figure that out, but I think our music offers an escape for some people.
Don't you think maybe the state of Montana, in its sparse population, offers kind of an escape for people?
Yes, yeah. Montana is a great state. I'm so proud to be born and raised here. And another thing about Montana is it's okay to be an individual, and that's, I think, where I got the part of me that says, well, I don't have to follow any footsteps. I can forge my own. And I think Montana, it's just a breed of people that it's okay to do your own thing, to be a maverick, to be independent. And it's, I think, inspired by our wide open spaces. You can go any direction you want here. You know, there's not a lot of pavement and steel, and it's a type of atmosphere that where good things happen.
You've had a chance to rub elbows with some pretty neat people entertaining around, like Michael Martin Murphy. Wasn't long you were in Missoula with him, right?
Yeah.
Who were some of the others you've worked with?
We've worked with, gosh, pretty much everybody, you know. I mentioned Garth Brooks before. He's a friend of mine. I see him on the Opry all the time. You know, a lot of the older artists on the Opry, I know them, and they're great people. We've been around for 12 years, so we've opened up for pretty much everybody, you know, Clint Black, Winona, you know, Alan Jackson, Brooks and Dunn, all those guys, you know, and then a lot of my favorite artists to play with. You know, I've done a duet with Merle Haggard, with Asleep at the Wheel. So we've been very lucky to be able to meet a lot of different people and a lot of the different artists, you know, and that's part of the fun part of the business, I guess, is you get to meet people and go a lot of different places.
Wylie, what's the deal with the yodel? Where did that start? Was that something that your father inspired you?
The yodel started in this house. You know, whenever Dad was happy, he would let out a yodel. Or up on the ski hill. He was famous for letting yodels on Big Mountain. We'd go up there every winter and take a week off, and we'd ski, and he'd always be yodeling on the slopes and, you know, yodeling out on horseback. So when he was happy, he would yodel. So that influenced me, and that's where I learned how to yodel. It was from my dad.
Who were some of the people, again, in the industry that you remember as a youngster that were doing that at the time that were famous?
Well, Elton Britt is my favorite professional yodeler. He's the king of the yodeling cowboys. And so I listened to a lot of Elton Britt. Roy Rogers is a great yodeler. Wilf Carter from across the border. So I've always been inclined to seek out yodelers and good ones, you know, and yodeling is fun for me, so I've collected a lot of CDs and still try to practice yodeling as much as I can.
You can be very original with it, I think, is what's unique about yodeling.
Yeah, you know, and very expressive. And when we do a show, I had to live in Los Angeles for a few years to get my music career going, and I figured out early on in Los Angeles the power of yodeling. When I would perform in LA, you know, we could do a whole night, but the song where they would stop and set their drinks down or whatever would be the yodeling song. Everybody would listen, so it kind of gets people's attention. So I've always included yodeling as a part of our show, and I've taken it seriously. You know, it's a serious art form to me. I'm trying to revive it and keep it alive, and yodeling has done very well for me. You know, it's I'm the guy who does the Yahoo yodel at the end of every Yahoo commercial, and it's changed my life.
I was just going to mention that for our viewers that may not realize that the Yahoo yodel that they hear on national television and so forth is your yodel.
Yeah, back in 1996, I yodeled for this little company that nobody knew about, Yahoo. You know, this was before the internet really took off, and they made that yodel that I recorded back in 1996 their trademark, audio trademark, and so it's been great. It's you know, my yodel's been heard all over the world, and you know, that I just lucked out there.
You know, I've mentioned to people, Wylie Gustufson grew up in Conrad. He's from Conrad, and they say, Wylie and Wild West, oh, I think I know who that is. You say the Yahoo yodeler, and they know instantly who you are.
Sure.
Now, does that bother you that people may remember you that way?
No, not at all. You know, the Yahoo yodeler, I feel lucky to be able to be known as something. You know, it's hard in this business, doing the type of music that I do, to be famous all over the world. And again, that's not what I'm looking for. I just want our music to be important to a certain amount of people, and it doesn't bother me that we're still a secret.
What are some of the things that you'd like to see happen in your career as you get a little bit older? Do a little bit different things? Anything that pops into your mind?
Yeah, no, just age gracefully and be happy. You know, it's traveling is a hard part of our business. I have to travel all the time, and I don't like that. I don't like getting on a plane and being away from my family, being away from my ranch. But so I want to stay home a little bit more, and at the same time, I want to record more, get our music out there, and have as many people hear our music as I can. I mean, that's always been a goal of mine, but I want to do it in the right way. I don't want to sell out. I don't want to have to give anything up, and you know, I just want to be able to keep on doing this for a living. I've been doing it now for 12 years with this band, and hopefully it'll last another 12.
With the cutting horses, you've made quite a name for yourself already, haven't you?
Well, I've been doing well cutting. My wife and I both cut, so when I'm home, we both have something to do. I'll go home this weekend, and we'll have 2 days of cutting in Washington. And it's something that I love to do, and my wife and I can spend time together, and we lucked out and got a great horse. We won the non-pro derby in Vernon, BC, with one of my horses last year and took fourth at the Canadian Supreme, which are big shows, and it was my first year competing, so I felt pretty lucky, but I had a great horse under me.
For those who have never seen the cutting itself, is it more horse or more rider?
Well, it's more horse, but you've got to be a jockey on that horse. You can't just sit up there and do nothing. You know, you're supposed to drop the reins and let the horse do all the work, but there's a lot of preparation before it gets to that point of dropping the reins and trusting your horse enough to where that horse can hold a cow away from the herd without any cues from the reins. You do use your legs, and you do have to ride the horse, it's a lot of fun. If people haven't been to a cutting, go watch, you know, and hopefully it's one of those sports that's growing really fast. It is a lot of fun, and for me, like I said, it's a great time to spend, a great way to spend time with my wife.
This is airing in April. What's the rest of the year look like for you? Are you popping all over the place?
Well, yeah, we're going all over the world. We're going to France in August. That's one of our furthest. We haven't been across the Atlantic in a long time. I think the last time we were there is we played Euro Disney 7 or 8 years ago. We're also doing the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. We're talking about an Eastern Asian tour, a government-sponsored cultural exchange tour. So if the war doesn't get too out of hand, we'll probably go over there. And we're doing some shows, the National Folk Festival in Bangor, Maine, which will be a big thing for us. We're breaking into that folk genre. I guess our music, cowboy music, is in a way folk music. So we're showing up at a lot of the folk festivals.
Probably some young people out there who are interested in music in the state of Montana, maybe in junior high or high school. What would you tell them when they see programs like Star Search, knowing that it's a very competitive business? The chances of being picked are pretty slim. There's a lot of people want to be out there. What would you tell them to do?
You know, I always tell people if they want a career in music, you better have a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan, because it doesn't happen overnight. It really doesn't. You have to be persistent, and you have to dedicate yourself, just like to anything else. And if you love what you do, and if you're talented and are persistent, things will happen. Sometimes it just takes a while for things to happen the way you want them to.
I'm assuming you'd probably tell them that you don't have to necessarily move to Nashville.
No, you don't. It helps. It depends on what type of music you want to do. If you want to be the next Shania Twain, you better go to Nashville, because that's kind of where a lot of that music happens. But if you want to do music like folk music or something else, you don't have to move to Nashville. You know, if you're doing cowboy music, hang out where the cowboys hang out.
Well, Wylie, we appreciate 30 minutes of your time. I know you're a very busy guy, and I'm sure it's always fun to come back home and visit with your folks and come back to the home place. But we appreciate the time that you've given us today, and your career obviously is going where you want it to, and it was nice that you would share that video from the Grand Old Opry.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and I'll leave you with a little yodel here.
That means you're very happy. Thank you very much, Wylie, for joining us today on Face the State. From Conrad, thank you for joining us today on this Sunday morning. Wylie Gustufson from Wylie and the Wild West. From Montana's news station, I'm Fred Pfeiffer.